Hi, everybody. This is Lauren Baker with Search Engine Journal. Welcome to today's episode of the SEJ Show. With me, I have Jon Henshaw from Paramount Plus, who's been a guest multiple times. Hey, Jon, how's it going?
Hey, I'm great.
So, first of all, congratulations.
What did I do?
So your daughter is going to Berkeley
Oh yeah.
School of
Yeah, I'm wearing
Music.
a hat.
School of Music, and I really enjoyed the video compilation of her and her music teacher over the years.
Oh, cool.
It,
That
it,
was really neat.
it brought me to tears, to tell you the truth.
No
Especially
way.
when the teacher teared up at the end. I was just like, oh my God. And I'm feeling like all emotional now in my old age because, like, I don't know,
It
whatever it
is.
is as a
It's
parent.
pretty cool. Yeah, because I know you post a lot of stuff of your son, and I've even been seeing through some of your posts to him getting better at basketball. Throughout the years and stuff. And it is one of the neat things about being a parent, is having a kid who is completely helpless and can't wipe their own butt, to watching them learn how to speak and walk, and and um and that video is obviously moving to me too, because it's just sort of, here's somebody who started off playing the piano like me, ding ding ding, and
Cross buns.
and then to see a human being grow and flourish, uh, and develop a skill, and perhaps even a gift, like that's pretty cool. It's pretty neat. It's even neater when it's your own kid.
It is cool. And as a reminder, I can't. What was the song that she did at the end? I know it was Judy Collins because I remember it from when I was a kid.
I don't remember. I'm a
Okay.
horrible dad.
So,
After all that, I have no
oh,
idea. I don't remember what the
on,
name of that song was.
on to new topics. Okay, so Jon Henshaw, you've been incredibly involved with the world of SEO since day one. For those of you who are, for those people who are listening and watching and listening to us talk about our kids, why don't you give a background about yourself, what you've created over the years, and what you're working on now?
I will try to keep it short and sweet, and not go over all of the history that came before Raven Tools. But just to say that I've been an entrepreneur majority of my life, failed at everything, but it was mostly all web based. Had some successes, but my first real success was with Raven Tools, way back in, I don't know, 2007. And we were an agency at the time, created it to solve our own problems, gave some stuff away as one of those old techniques, and it still even works today, of making free tools and getting people to talk about you and link to you. Decided that we could elevate it and make it something much bigger and better, and make it a true fee-based SaaS. And so that's probably how we got to know each other over the years,
Mhm.
Lauren. But yeah, Raven was like an 11-year adventure, and eventually sold that, exited out of that in 2017. Sold it to enterprise reporting company who wanted to kind of um, you know find agencies and more business. So that was TapClicks, and they're still going, and they've been acquiring a lot of things. I think they're doing pretty well. And then I joined CBS Interactive, which became Viacom CBS, which is now Paramount, and I am the director of SEO for Paramount Plus, Showtime, Pluto TV, which is all really fun. I can't talk about any of it on this call, so
Oh
don't
yeah,
even ask me.
I
Don't
get it.
even ask me, Lauren. But I can talk about anything else.
What's Pluto TV?
What?
What's Pluto TV?
You don't know what Pluto TV is? Pluto TV is
No.
awesome. It's just tons of channels with a ridiculous amount of both, like, live, like just streaming content of just of shows, series, movies,
Mhm.
and then it has a ton of on-demand content, and it's always kind of constantly changing. And
This library.
I mean, they have, like, it's real stuff. It's like they had Wolf of Wall Street on there for a long time.
Gotcha.
I mean, it's all really good stuff, and you can watch it on your device, your computer, Apple TV, whatever it might be. And it's just ad supported, but it's aside from you not knowing what it is, it's very popular.
I have
a
to.
lot of people use it.
I have to sign up to Paramount Plus because my favorite TV show is now on Paramount Plus, which is Bar Rescue, and
Cool.
which used to be my favorite show on was it Spike? Was it Spike? And then the Spike Network, and then that I think it was Spike, and then that rebranded to the Paramount Network, and then now it's within Paramount Plus. So,
yeah,
congratulations for being in the world of streaming, by the way.
Thanks. It's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. I've also really enjoyed just kind of getting to understand and mastering sort of just video SEO. I think that's a really interesting area, and just how Google works. And I've enjoyed being able to work with some of the Google teams on different things. And so it's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. And plus my coworkers are awesome, particularly on the SEO side of things.
I understand they are. And also, so let me know if I know there's certain things you can't talk about and certain things that you can, but one thing that definitely noticed on the Google side is that, especially on mobile devices, within the search results themselves, they've increased the amounts of images, the amounts of videos, the amounts of video carousels, vertical videos within the results, things like that. How do you feel about that? Have you noticed it more? Is it something that is benefiting the world of streaming, or do you see it more as let's be relevant to people that are used to seeing this on every other app that they utilize, especially TikTok and Instagram?
Yeah, I can talk, in generalities. I think that I think a lot of the stuff that I've been seeing them do is positive, is a good thing for the end user. One of the things that they've done and that they brought over from the mobile world to the desktop world is that search experience for like a TV series or something like that, where you get sort of those tabs that you can click through. And so there's, it's certainly been advantageous to, I would say, all streaming services that they highlight that more. They've done a really good job of making it easy for searchers to find where they can watch it immediately if they wanted to stream it, or that be whatever, HBO Max, whatever. I mean, anything, with those little icons that are on there. And I think that they've been really clear about what you need to use code-wise. I'm thinking like schema, structured data, that kind of stuff, in order to fully take advantage of all the search experiences that are available to video providers. And so it really just comes down to, are you taking advantage of it, and are you implementing it correctly? And so I really appreciate what they've done. Like with this topic, and how it affects me, I have a very positive feeling about it. I genuinely am appreciative of what the different Google teams have done, as far as improving that experience. So
that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, I definitely noticed a difference. I always talk about this. One of my favorite hobbies is to search on Google for certain terms during the weekends and in incognito mode on my phone. And I seem to always be seeing what they're testing, right? It seems like that's when to do it, right?
You're not doing SEO unless you're in incognito mode all the time.
Yeah, and it's just like on the weekends. It's when I tend to see the SERP changes the most, the real estate changes, things like that. I'm like, oh look, hey, look what Google's testing. Oh look, this must be around the corner if they're testing it on a Saturday and Sunday type thing. And I've just noticed it's mostly video. It's mostly carousels, image carousels, video carousels, things like that. They're having a hard time in some spaces trying to figure out what's legitimate editorial content versus sponsored editorial content versus editorial content that has sponsored links in it that are affiliate links. But besides that, it is very
links aren't bad. They're not bad.
No, hey, No, they're not. Yeah, so that's really cool. And then now your latest project, your latest personal project
Yeah,
is
Coy
it
Wolf.
Coy Wolf or Coy Wolf?
No, no, no. Come on, Lauren. Well, so
Because
the reason why I know, the reason why I said Kai is because Coy Wolf is a hybrid coyote wolf that's in North America. Um, and so and a lot of people think Coy Wolf is supposed to mean some sort of like coy wolf or whatever. It just sounds better that way. I mean, it's just what it is. All right. It's a Coy Wolf. It's not a Kai Wolf because that sounds weird. And and so I picked that for a lot of different reasons. You might see a theme in my branding from going, Raven, being a
animals,
Raven.
nighttime
Um,
nocturnal animals. Are you usually up
well,
working at night? Is that
no,
a
well,
thing?
so like Raven, that was picked because at the time, way back when, I think a lot of people still saw SEO as sort of like a dark art, which it's not. But a lot of people kind of did, and so it was a little bit from a little literary reference to also that ravens and crows, but ravens are considered one of the smartest birds on the planet.
They
So
are.
it's intelligence. They actually use tools.
Yes, they do.
Um, and so that's kind of where that came from. It was just sort of this dark arts of digital marketing, and they're also extremely smart and they use tools, and so that's kind of where that
Yeah,
came
they're
from.
extremely smart. They communicate. They talk. They have languages.
Yes.
Ravens.
Caw, caw, coo,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Call.
languages
There's
we
a
don't
trash can over here.
understand, but we know they're saying trash can over here. So with Coy Wolves, the reason why I picked that was because I really liked the duality of that animal, the fact that it kind of has DNA from both. It's really technically called the Eastern coyote, but it has enough DNA from wolves, and it is bigger than a coyote, and so on. But I liked how I like the idea of that duality, but I also like its relation to how it adapts to an ever changing environment.
Well,
And so to me, that is how I see our digital landscape. And you mentioned just a couple minutes ago about how the SERPs, you keep checking them and they're always changing. Things are,
always.
and Google's always testing different things. And so for you and me and anybody who might be watching this, who does a lot of things in SEO, you're always checking on a daily basis. And you should almost always be seeing shifts and changes and tests. I mean, it's just a constant um, thing that Google is doing, and I love that. That's actually one of the reasons why I am so into what I do and continue to be passionate about it, because it's not boring. It's never not being updated, tweaked, tested. Something new changes, then they pull back, or something stays, or whatever it might be, um, and to be able to participate in that, but to also use the time you've been in the field as a way to have perspective on those changes is
Mhm.
kind of a neat thing. So I would say that if you were to compare somebody like you and me with somebody who's only been in the field for maybe a year or two, it's likely that we might have a different response to changes we're seeing in the SERPs, because we have
We're less
a
likely to
lot
freak
of time.
out.
Yeah, where it's like, you know what? That's probably that, and I'm not going to lose any sleep over that. Where another person might be like, "We're screwed," or like, "This is such a horrible change that whatever."
Let me update my LinkedIn right
Right,
now.
right, right. But anyways, so I think that's really fun. I think it's really interesting. It can obviously be not great for the bottom line or a business sometimes, but that's the challenge I live for. Like it's not the worst thing in the world if Google decides to sort of tweak or change how something is. I love the idea that I now have a new challenge to get myself back there. I now get to
Yeah.
figure out what I think it is they might have changed, or what's a new signal maybe they're putting more weight on, and I want to go test that, and I want to figure out what it will take in order to usurp the people that got there now. And in some cases, I don't have to do anything. In some cases, I just I just wait, because if I know that what I've done is the best I can do for a particular thing, like anything else would just be spam or would be, beyond what I
Busy
would
work.
consider. to be the right thing, it almost always comes back to where it was. You just, it's some, you know, a lot of times it's a waiting game. If you know that you've done everything right, because you have probably one of the best ideas of sort of how Google thinks about this problem, if you wait a few weeks, you may just go right back. And that happens, I would say, in more cases than not.
It does. It's actually happened after this recent core update to me today, to be frankly honest. I was checking out a site
right now.
I was checking out a site that was constantly declining after this core update, and then boom, it's performing better than what it was beforehand, right? And
right.
you know, that's also, I think, the throwing it out and pulling it back, throwing it out and pulling it back component is something that is natural. It's something that, like, just talking to Googlers earlier on, that was like one way to identify who was spamming the most and who wasn't. Like, you drop them down a couple positions, see what they did, you know, see what the others didn't do, and be like, oh, okay, this is the one that's doing it, you know, whatever. And then you know, Google. I think at the same time, Google's also very good at manipulating human behavior, right? So featured snippets change the way that everybody writes content, right? Like,
right. You mean instead of manipulating human behavior, affecting how webmasters or SEOs approach the way they write and do things, structure things.
Yeah, exactly. Or to an extent, writing an article. Like, if I wrote an article utilizing the rules that I learned an AP, what is it? Using the Little Brown Handbook, right? I typically would not bullet point and number every point I was trying to make. I would just write what it is.
Yeah, but Axios does that.
What's that?
And they rank. Axios does everything in bullet points. Axios, the news.
Yeah. Oh.
And they do it, and they still show up.
Interesting. So, what are some
I'm
signals?
not suggesting we do that. I'm just saying they do that.
What are some signals and some tools? You alluded to this a little bit when we talked about it beforehand. What are some signals that you are seeing that are getting stronger and more impactful over, say, the last 6 months or a year, when a lot of us focused on things like linking or whatever?
Yeah. So to tell you that, I should probably finish the question about Coy Wolf. So Coy Wolf is basically my digital playground. It's where I have fun. It's where I learn things, where I test things. And so, you know, I'm in Google News with the coywolf.news site. I use a bunch of different domains. So I have coywolf.pro, I have coywolf.reviews for all my reviews stuff. I am building an app at coywolf.app. So it's where, as you know, when you work at a large company, you can't take risks there. And and you have to be really confident in the recommendations you make and the you know, your decisions and stuff. And so so I use this on my own time to scratch itches, to have full control over things that I want to test and see what happens. And so that's what Coy Wolf has been and is for me today. It's a place for me to test things around publishing and that type of thing and getting things to rank. So with that being said, I would say that one of the most interesting things that I've observed over the last, I don't know, year or two with what I've been doing is the ability to rank content like first or really high without any outreach or link building. That's the most interesting thing to me. And I'll give you an example. coywolf.reviews, you know, just a rando, you know, new GTLD, you know, domain, has maybe I've done 7 or 8 reviews on it. That's all it is. That's all the site is. The site is just a review site and has maybe like 8 reviews on it.
What are you reviewing?
I'm reviewing everything from products to software to books.
Let me bring it up.
And
So
when I say books, I mean singular book, because I've only done one book review. Because, you know, I don't have time to do all this stuff. This is just stuff I do on my own time. But the vast majority of those articles, those reviews, rank first. Most of them. If you were to do like Fathom Analytics review or Memberful review, or even Shopify's new Link Pop. I wrote a Link Pop review. And if you were to search for Link Pop review, I'm generally almost always first every time I check incognito. I've done nothing with them. I haven't done any outreach, any link building, anything. All I did was set up the site and I wrote the content and put it out there. Maybe I linked to it from my Coy Wolf Reddit profile, and of course I shared it on Twitter, and maybe LinkedIn or something like that. So some social signals out there, but beyond that, I've done nothing. And so I think that is extraordinary. I also think it's really interesting that with the latest update that affected reviews, I also saw some things move up, like way up, that where before I understood that some of the things I've done reviews about relate to me as an author, as an entity, but writing something about hardware, which was, I think, Level Lock review would be probably the search for that. That used to be buried. And as they've made their changes, that has moved up. And I think it might have been on page 1 for a little while, which, is above all of the other, major sites out there. And so that really gets my attention. I mean, that's one of those things where surely those couldn't be doing so well because of me as an entity, as an individual, like who is, I do know that Google sees me as an author.
Right.
I haven't done anything special there. I don't have a Wikipedia page or anything like that. I just, use a lot of structured data everywhere. If you search for my name, Jon Henshaw, I have a knowledge panel now, and it says author. They figured that out. And it has a carousel of my articles. Each time I post them, they show up there, at least from Coy Wolf News. And so I think I just think that's really interesting. I think it's interesting because when you talk to most people and the way most agencies function with their clients, and even just large companies, where I've just kind of observed things, what they're doing, or maybe they have like a position for something, and they're like, as part of it is, you definitely do, what's the InMotion thing? That's not part of my video or part of my page.
Oh, that's it. That's our advertiser. So thank you, InMotion, for sponsoring today's episode.
Oh, okay. I was like,
it's in the template.
Inserting. That's fine.
Yeah. There's no ads on your post, so I thought I'd put one on there.
Yeah.
So
why is that? And obviously these are things I've been thinking about a lot, and I have some ideas around it, of why that might be. But I wanted to sort of start off and say it couldn't be simply because I'm a trusted entity, because there's plenty of trusted entities. There are what I would consider to be true, real journalists out there and editors that should have much more trust with Google's algorithm than me. And so I think that's a really interesting thing that I've seen in the past year or so. And I think that flips the script somewhat of one of the key and must do things that you have to do is you've got to do link building and outreach. And I'm not convinced anymore that that's actually true.
So you think that Google's picking this up because of it can't only be yourself as an author, though. I mean,
I have a theory. I'm just working towards it.
Yeah. Is there anything else that you've done with this site to help? How many reviews do you have?
Yeah, like maybe 8 reviews. I mean, I made this site maybe like a couple of years ago or something like that, and I've like
how
very slowly added reviews.
How clean is the site? Like in terms of like
clean. I only do clean. I don't do
speed, everything else.
Right.
Tracking
let's
pixels.
go down. Yeah. Let's go down it.
Okay.
And then we'll get to what I think it might be. So performance is kick-ass because that's stuff I obsess over. I've always been into performance. I was very excited when Core Web Vitals came out. I still am not so sure that's like the biggest signal in the entire world, but I just care about it because I think having a good UX matters. I don't do any advertising. I don't have any tracking pixels. I use Fathom analytics, but that's a complete privacy first solution. And there's no browser or plugin that picks up that component as like a tracker, because it's not recording anything that would disclose who they are, their IP or anything, stuff like that. So it's super fast, completely private. I'm a known entity associated with it. I think that the writing, probably the way it was written, probably has a good amount to do with some of its performance. I think that Google supposedly can know who an author is by just analyzing the content, supposedly. So there's probably some piece to that. I always write in a way that's focused on disambiguation. So I always write in a way where what's an entity I can mention that will confirm to Google that that's what this thing is about or related to. You know, what is another way to say something? You know, some kind of like a simile approach. And so I write intentionally, both for humans and bots. And I think with the latest review, sort of like algo update, whatever, I think that I probably hit on a lot of the things that they're looking for. So if you read any of my reviews, it's obvious I've used the product. It's obvious based on things I've said on there that any type of system that was somewhat intelligent would be able to be like, okay, this is all these things add up to this person is not making this up.
This is not mass-produced product reviews.
This is not mass-produced product reviews. This is definitely unique, and this person's definitely used it, and they've even included pictures and in some cases videos. This is definitely a thing. A real review that was thoughtful and happens to be associated maybe with a trusted author and that type of thing. I don't think all of those things combined is enough, at least historically it hasn't been, to explain why it ranks so well. I think those things alone, at least historically, they don't make a lot of sense. Here's the thing that I think is sort of like the final signal, the final thing that's pushing it above everything else, that's making it perform so well. And that is, and so this is a conversation I had with AJ Cohn like recently, because we're talking about this. And what we sort of were landing on was this idea of like a long link or whatever, this idea around it may have to do with how much time people are spending on the content itself before they actually click back to the search result, and that and a lot of, I think this has been panned in the past because people say, oh fine, we'll just hire a bunch of people all over the world to like click on a thing and whatever. And I do think Google is smarter than that. And I think it has to do with the fact that while I have a very high bounce rate on all of those sites, on all those content sites, but it ends up that's not a bad thing. A high bounce rate is not a bad thing if the time spent on that page is long. So, right. and I think that's the biggest difference is my content has been written in a way and the page performs in a way that people don't immediately, I don't want to say bounce because it's like a different thing. They don't immediately leave and go back to the search result. And it sucks them in, pulls them in, they actually read it because it's a legitimate article about this particular thing that they happen to be interested in. And so my time on site for most people is well into the 2-minute mark and many times higher. And I think that is likely combined with everything else that I feel like I'm doing correctly, where everything else is just completely optimized to the max, is probably why it's doing so well. And I've done zero link building, zero outreach for any of this content, particularly for the review site.
Super interesting. And a couple of things I'm noticing too is that like you have a pretty, you said your time on site is typically 2 minutes or more. And you're not like utilizing very many videos and stuff like that to keep people on longer, right? Except for
Right.
this, like
Most of my videos, the Clean My Mac one has a bunch of videos and it also performs poorly. But that's where in this case, you could start really debating everything I just said, which is I think Clean My Mac has been extremely active over the years in their in outreach and getting people to write reviews and whatever. So that I think that really muddies up what we're talking about. That's the one I've found to be incredibly competitive. I haven't really tried that hard to like try to get it to do better, but I feel like they've talked to everybody and they've been around for so long that that to me would represent, that's where this argument might start to like fall apart, which is that to me represents a highly competitive field. So when you start getting into real estate and gambling or whatever, I'm just saying like that to me, then that's where everything I just talked about still may not be valid, still may not be a valid approach, meaning like it still may require some form of outreach and link building to be competitive in that area where there's just so much going on. But I'm still surprised that things like that Level Lock are doing as well as it is.
I've noticed recently there's more people like launching review sites of specific, like instead of trying to do everything, right? Like trying to rank the best of everything. There are more passionate reviewer sites launching out there. I think it seems to me that maybe there's a resurgence of the written review from folks that used to only do their specific, maybe passion product reviews on YouTube or something like that. So I've noticed them popping up myself. One question I have for you is that like, so I'm looking at the schema validated results for the Level Lock page, and use product schema, right? So product schema is marked up for the Level Lock product, or Level Bolt, sorry, product, and the review type, name and description, all of that's on here. I see a lot of people trying to do like the same as trick, like it's the same as, and then like they'll list like the social accounts of the products that they're reviewing. You're not doing that. That's cool. But one thing that you've done with Coy Wolf, though, is you've developed your own interconnected authority network that this is part of, right? So,
right. Where visually it looks like one site, but it's actually using different domains. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So like, even in your markup, you have yourself, Jon Henshaw, the URL coywolf.news/Jon Henshaw, even on the Coy Wolf review site. So you're syncing all of that together. And then your same as is all Coy Wolf marketing. And then your main URL, your organizational URL, which you have in here as a publisher, is coywolf.llc. Right.
Because I'm a maniac, but yes.
Yeah. So, and then like, wait, let me share this again, because this is kind of interesting. So, and then you have all your information here, right? So it's Coy Wolf, Coy Wolf, Coy Wolf. The logo is coywolf.llc, logo.ping. Coy Wolf LLC. Then when I go back to the review site, I notice when I go to the top and then I click on the logo,
that's .com.
That's to the .com. Yes.
Aha! That's just a one-page site.
Right.
There's nothing there. It's just that page.
Which then has all of these different like book reviews that are on the .review, and everything else that you do that's Coy Wolf oriented. So
Right.
do you think that the analogy I'm gonna use here is like the go.com, and this kind of reminds me of what Disney did with go.com. Like if you go to go.com now, it's like an entry page of like Disney stuff. There's like Disney parks and Disney this and Disney that and Disney Plus. And I use it all the time when I'm working with some clients. So like that maybe they want to bury a site. I'm like, well, you should just kind of set up like a go.com style scenario. Like, so point being is do you think that setting up your own branded network that's on, even if it's on multiple different TLDs, has the same brand, they're interconnected, do you think that's actually helping these review pages rank at the end of the day?
I think it could help it. I mean, I think that the site that performs the best and is also the one that's in Google News. I mean, anything I write on it gets into Google News is the CoyWolf.news site.
Right.
And so the fact that that sort of is all interconnected and part of it, it's part of the main nav on all those different pages. You know, this entire thing was a giant experiment because
that's why we can talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Like,
And so nobody that I know of has done what I've done because nobody in their right mind would do it, and that makes me want to do it because I want to see what's it gonna, you know, how's it gonna perform. If you use a unique TLD for each particular type of thing that you're doing, you know, where, you know, to me, everything I'm doing is completely legitimate and above board. Like it is within the parameters of what Google would say is okay to do. And you know, my .pro site is just higher level stuff. I mean, it's more advanced articles, how-tos, things like that. The .news site is are news articles, period, about industry things. The .reviews is only reviews. I don't do anything but reviews on that site. And so that was the experiment, was what would happen if I had individual unique properties that only, and that's again part of this whole disambiguation thing, that only did the thing about the thing. And it wasn't diluted by any other type of content. And I do think that has worked out really well. And I do think it probably helps some, you know, all the sites just kind of perform it and do well together. You mentioned something about reputation management. I don't think you said the word reputation management, but you sort of did, which was, you know, if you're using all these different sites, then maybe it could push something down. You know, one of the things one of the several things that I've discovered through this whole giant experiment I've been doing is if you were to search maybe something like Coy Wolf space SEO or something like that, I haven't checked this in a while. I'm gonna fill the entire result with all my different domains. And so to me, just as a sort of like a side note to this approach, I mean, look at that. I mean, it's like I own this result. I mean, so I think that while I think there's many things to learn, one of the things that you can learn from this is that this is a potential tactic for reputation management. And it's something I do see with some brands out there, with some services. I don't think they're doing it for the same reason I have been doing this. But I think of like Fastmail. So like Fastmail has their support site uses .help, I think is what they use. It's like fastmail.help. And so, right. And I think they may use another domain other than .com that's like completely relevant to the content on that particular property. And I think that works really well. I think it probably, yeah.
Well, it's funny because it's not diluting the intent of the site, right? And it's not diluting the authority at all. It's keeping it very pinpoint. I've been working on some projects recently where we've been moving components of the site that are very valuable that might be lost in the weeds even after years of optimizing over to subdomains. And what the impact has been, like, it's hockey sticked because the sites are old, but at the same time, it kind of helped. And the theory is that it helped Google figure out exactly what we wanted to focus on, because there's so much other stuff out there, like moving in every other direction, right? And it's
Right.
just like boom. And this kind of has me thinking at the same time, there may be some kind of correlation between the two types of strategies, where it's like, do I want to walk down the grocery aisle and look at every single type of fabric softener, or do I want to grab that fabric softener that's right at the end? That's like the easiest to get to type thing. It's like a shelf space type thing. Like, it's easier to figure out at the end of the day. But I really do think, like, the way that you've set this up as a network helps, because it's like, okay, this is an established business. It's associated with, to your point, a writer who has a history of writing this type of content and a very unique voice, who's also indexed within Google News, who's also doing this and also doing that. And it's not like you're pretty much staying in your lane of shit
Mm-hmm.
that you're really interested in, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Like, if you start writing things like best travel credit cards or something like that tomorrow, it may work, may not, who knows? But or best whatever it may be, it may not work as well. But it's stuff that you're definitely into, right? And
Right. There's definitely something there for what entities are related to, and topic relevance.
right.
I've had a lot of fun playing around with trying to compete against a handful of terms just to see, if I could do it. And so there's, and I would consider this to be nothing new, more old schoolish, if anything. But I've played around with, on the news site, I will intentionally write about certain topics because I want to reinforce something I've written about before.
Right.
And I've absolutely seen that the more I write about something and the more I do some internal, linking back and forth and mentions and even update some things, that has almost an immediate effect on how well a particular query performs.
Now, when you launched Coy Wolf, right, you did it very cool. You're very coy,
Coy-like?
very coy. Yeah, you're very calm, cool, and collected. Like, hey guys,
I'm
haven't heard
definitely
from
not
me
a
for a
spammy person.
while.
Yeah, I'm not a spammy person, but yes.
And you also kind of like did it before, like, the whole Substack thing got popular as well, right? It was
Oh, you mean
very,
because I was doing a membership site or something? Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
I think
yeah. It was
I probably
very
started
good
that.
timing. Like, join my
Yeah,
site, right? You can
I had to
prepay.
stop it. I had to stop the membership because,
Did you?
yeah, I stopped it because I didn't have time for my real job. I mean, like, I got to do my real job. So
Were you doing like customer service? Were people like upset? Like, really?
no, it's
Like
more
credit
of
card churning and stuff like
because
that? Like,
yeah, no, not bad. I don't think. No, it had more to do with I do this for fun. This is literally my extracurricular activity.
mhm.
And when I had the membership component, I felt incredible amount of stress to maintain a certain volume of content. And
Mm.
and
I've been there.
and in order to maintain that, it would because it's not going to affect what I do in my day job. I just have to lose sleep. and so call it age or whatever.
Uh-huh.
But it was just too much stress. It was just too much stress. I didn't want to have it was unnecessary stress because I didn't need the money from it, and I wanted to sleep. So that simple equation came down to why have I introduced unnecessary stress in my life, and so that's why I sort of ended that. And for the most part, most of the stuff I do with the core stuff is something where instead of watching TV that night, I'm going to work on something, or it's going to be a weekend project. Kind of like weekend projects. I love just going on tangents. A weekend project I did recently that was fun to me was I created something called the Open Graph Checker, which is a Chrome extension. So if you
Ooh.
go to coywolf.pro, go there. because that'll lead us to where we need to go. But that was something where I had used this extension for a long time, but it had disappeared and couldn't download it. I didn't like the ones that existed because they just over-engineered it, or it was incredibly ugly. And this is something I use a lot in the things I do. So if you click on right there, the Open Graph Checker extension link, that'll take you where we need to go.
Wait, I'm on the page.
Yeah. If you click on the page, if you go down below that video, it says Open Graph Checker extension. Yeah, click on that. That'll take us to
this link right here that says Open Graph Checker extension. This link.
But move down. Yeah, there you go. You got it. Yeah. So that was something where the developer that is working on this app that I've been over 3 years trying to build, it was where I wanted to just solve like a problem. Like this extension's gone. The ones that are left, I hate the user experience. I hate, whatever it might be. And so I made one of these, and so it's just something I felt like doing on a weekend, and it ended up working, and I use it almost every day. And it was fun because I wanted to do it exactly the way I knew Google wanted extensions to be built. And so within, I think, maybe a couple of weeks of publishing it, I got the featured thing on there, like new freaking publisher, and got the check mark thing. So somehow I quickly became a trusted publisher. Anyways, this is what I call fun. I do like to hike and go outside and breathe air. But I also just, on my downtime, I love playing and working on these things and seeing if I can solve problems and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I do it underneath.
Add to that like entity footprint as well, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's all under. I'm trying. If you haven't noticed, I'm also trying to build a brand from scratch.
Yeah.
But do it the right way and do it slowly, and have this be more of a slow game than I don't know. I'm doing it my way. Like you said, I was coy about it, even though it has nothing to do with the name. And it's just something that I definitely am not. I bought the .com domain for a significant amount of money after asking the person who owned it for a couple of years, and that person finally agreed once we got to a new number. It's definitely something that I could see being much more significant and bigger, maybe sometime in the future. It's something I'm very serious about, but for now, it is my extracurricular activity. It's where I experiment. Nothing that would burn my sites down, but just test different ideas, test different things, and play around and make things like this. And if you go to like CoyWolf.app, that's the thing I've been trying to build for a few years because it doesn't exist, and I want it to exist, which is my version of a minimalist contact relationship manager. It doesn't exist, so I want it to exist. Now I'm my 4th developer, but this one is awesome. This one is proving to be pretty incredible, but it's at a pace that he works on it when he can, and I work on it when I can, and it'll be ready when it's ready.
Awesome. You're giving me a lot of different ideas, by the way.
Oh, great. Is that good or bad?
No, it's good. I'm also thinking about how I could use these. I'm thinking about how I could use this for evil as well, for companies that have not claimed all of their other things and building apps and then putting. So one thing I did notice is that you refer back to your CoyWolf.com site and your CoyWolf.news in your schema markup, right? But then the CoyWolf.com, you obviously link to all of these sites, which is basically shows Google that they are interrelated, right? So it's like the same concept of linking to your blog, linking to your subdomain from your core site, things like that.
Which,
so
by the
Google
way,
knows that these are all part of one network.
Yes. And I do have things like coywolf.blog, which are just sort of standalone off of their own, and coywolf.email, which I use for my newsletter. But this is the central core here. And the idea is that one day coywolf.com, I could get rid of all those domains and just pull them all to coywolf.com and do a traditional thing if I wanted to one day. I don't know. I'm not going to right now. And I like the way this is working for the same reasons why we've been, what we've been discussing and looking at. But it could be one day that I just put everything on .com and go old school because for whatever reason. But for now, because I can take that risk and I can play around because this is not my business per se. I really like how this is working.
I like the slow growth approach as well. It reminds me of a Japanese proverb that I forgot how to say in Japanese, but it's the concept of Kaizen. It's every mountain starts with a speck of dust, right? So Kaizen's at the 1,000 steps, but you have to start with step 1. And you just grow and grow slowly and slowly and slowly and slowly over time. It also reminds me of when I first started SEJ, I was like on SitePoint forums a lot, and like there was like some other person wanted to start a blog, and SitePoint forums, it was all like bloggers that had like swords, like sold swords. It was all these like guys like that, I don't know, crazy individuals. But one response from, I can't remember what their handle was like, that blog that you start today could be a novel in 20 years. So just stick with it. Right.
For sure.
And I think in marketing, especially with like things like, quarterly reports, earnings reports, growth hacking and things like that, what can be lost is that, hey, let me work on this over time, right? And if you think about the way we started this conversation with our kids growing up, right? And seeing them turn from those little babies that can't do anything for themselves to suddenly being able to, in your case, going to one of the best music schools in the country. In my case, getting mad at me and shoving me, and I'm like, oh my God, I just been shoved by a grown man, basically. It's like it takes time, but you get to the result. So, and then also having something on the side to work on, right?
Yes. Like, it scratches a lot of
everyone I talk to. I'm like, just, everyone have some kind of experiment. So
it makes you sharper. I mean, it keeps you, I want to say this in the best and most respectful way, but when you work at an agency or you work at a large company in-house or whatever, everybody knows that you can't do everything you want. You can't, it's, there are other people, there's compromise, there's, whatever it might be. I mean, you can't do a lot of things. So if you have a hunch on something or whatever, it might be that it's not okay to take that particular risk, or unless you can really show evidence of something, then you probably shouldn't be recommending that. And so I would say that this for me has been sort of that, call it a dojo, call it a whatever. This is my place where there is no consequence because only I'm affected by the outcome of whatever it is I'm working on over here. And so I've really enjoyed that. I literally don't do anything gray, black, spammy, or whatever. I mean, everything I do is all pretty much just legit, above board. I have nothing to hide type of approach and stuff, but I definitely do experiment and do things that a lot of people within our field would consider to be not best practice or never seen that before, or I certainly wouldn't advise doing that. And what I've learned from it is there actually are some things I now would suggest or advise because it's not as bad as you thought it might be. The idea that, not that I advise Fastmail or anything like that, but like the idea of saying to somebody like Fastmail who's already done this, that, it might actually make sense to put your support site or this or whatever on this particular TLD, um, and and it might actually perform well. I mean, like,
Right.
and will perform alongside your normal brochure slash web app site. So I mean, those are things that I wouldn't have known or even wouldn't have recommended or considered without these experiments that I do on the side.
And it also pre-qualifies the intent of the user before they click, or at least they know that that's going to be the support site. Like, how many
Mhm.
times do you search for, like, I don't know, Comcast Comcast phone number, right? And next thing I know, I'm calling a sales phone number when I wanted to talk to customer support. So the ability to actually know that you're clicking on support and you're not clicking on something that's going to take you down some weird tunnel is
Yeah.
pretty crazy. Speaking of, had a question come in from Eric Lander, who's been watching these shows all the time live, by the way, on LinkedIn. So hey, Eric, what's up, buddy? So
Send him some swag if you haven't
yeah,
already.
yeah, I
Consider
know.
search
Like,
engine general swag.
yeah, there's a couple of names I see popping up all the time. So if you're on here and you've watched the show before live, leave a comment on LinkedIn right now, or Twitter, or YouTube, or Facebook, or wherever. Eric asks, did you observe a gradual increase in search visibility to these posts?
Right.
Thinking time on page helps, but specific to being measured for organic search results, which helps to climb and hold positions but not initially obtain them? Or is he misunderstanding?
No, it's a good question, and the answer is it's different for each site. So I've observed a difference for the pro, news, and review site, different behavior, with the and we have to make the assumption that after these sites have been around for a little bit of time. By a little bit of time, I mean, I don't know, 6 months. Um, with a review site, whenever I write a review, whenever I've written a review around something that my author entity would be closely associated with, those seem to perform really well quickly. The things that have taken the most time, that struggle and continue to struggle, are things that I'm not as related to. That's why that level bolt thing was really interesting to me, because that has never performed that well until more recently.
Hmm.
Clean My Mac continues to not perform that great. But everything else, everything related to SEO, everything related to software, type of stuff, that generally seems to do really well. I also have played around. Like, I think the link pop one performs well because I went out of my way to write articles about link pop being released on Coy Wolf News. So I know I said that um, I did no outreach or no link building or whatever. The one exception to that is within my own network. I mean,
Yeah.
of course, I'm doing some things within my own network, but um, to me, that's not technically outreach. That's just me leveraging properties that I've made. That's, to me, a little different. And so with reviews, it's been topics that I would say would be more closely related to who and how Google sees me as an author. Those perform pretty well, and I think there's a connection there. There's a correlation there. With the news site, um, uh, that just does well in general.
That's cool.
That is one of those things where, because it's always in Google News, and I think there's just some level of trust of that site that Google has. A lot of the articles, and also just the freshness component of it. A lot of those will perform well, at least initially, when I publish those. Sometimes um, they'll eventually just kind of wane or whatever. But I would say that a good portion of the articles I've written for Coy Wolf News just generally perform well, and they continue to perform well. They just aren't that popular. Meaning, like, I write about things I'm interested in, not things that I think everybody is searching for. That's a big difference. But even some of the things that people are searching for, like, it's not ranking well right now at this moment. And I actually predicted that a few weeks ago before WWDC. But like Apple search engine, I almost always have a featured snippet or first for the query Apple search engine. I'm not now. I think I'm like maybe like halfway down the page or even further. But I think that'll eventually make its way back up. And if it doesn't, I'll do some things for fun to get it back up. For Pro,
That sounds fun.
yeah, Pro is that's actually been the one that has struggled the most, but that also has a different history. So before, the Pro site used to be all behind the wall. I would have sort of like an
Mhm.
intro paragraphs or whatever above that, but everything else would be hidden from Google and other search engines. And so, I don't, and I think that is that's just more muddy. I'm not really sure. I mean, some things do really well, and some things really struggle. That's a really competitive space. Some of the things I write about. I would say that anything around a person and the word like interview performs really well. So
Yeah.
if you search for a person's name, space interview, I mean, that thing's going to be like at the top of the page above the fold. So those perform well immediately and continue to perform well. So it's all different. It's all different. It's all based on the history of the page and the intent and how Google treats it.
When you launched CoyWolf.com, looking at your backlink portfolio, it is it's very targeted, but it's also quite robust, right? It's a lot of SEO sites, tech sites, podcasts that you've been on, things like that. Now you're not doing outreach for the articles. This is something that always gets really that always confuses me, because I'll see these arguments on Twitter. I'm not an SEO Twitter guy. I don't know what SEO Twitter is. I just tweet about stuff. I never get in Twitter. I try not to get in Twitter arguments, but I'll see Twitter arguments about Google ranks pages, not domains, or Google ranks pages, not sites. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, I know if I have a quality site and I put together a halfway decent page, it's going to rank. Your .com has a very, it's not a lot of links, but they're very powerful, very targeted.
Definitely plays a role. It's a dispatch page. It definitely plays a role.
And then the rest of the network is orbiting around the .com. So do you think that quality that the .com does have, especially with all the schema markup and everything else, and the way that you set up this network, is helping?
Okay, well, let's go back to link building.
Okay.
I do link building without link building. And what I mean by that is Coy Wolf News is link building without the effort. If you can create a site that Google will trust and put and trust enough to put those articles, have all the right signals, and trust to put those articles within Google News, that is link building. The reason why is because I have links from TechCrunch. I have links from all kinds of different media sites.
Because they're all picking it up,
Because they see it there. They're doing similar research themselves when they're trying to look for something. And if something's showing up in news, that's supposed to be sort of like a trust. They assume I'm a journalist, which I pretend to be one. I mean, I say that I actually write articles as a journalist. I mean, like I do that. That's how I intentionally write it, and I have policy and standards that I adhere to. So I mean, it's not just a joke, I mean, it's legit. And so, but the point of that is, if you're looking at my backlink profile and you're seeing some really big sites that link to it, and including people throwing it in Wikipedia, which I still think has value. I don't care about no follow. It's not from any effort I've done other than to write a good article and to have a site that Google trusts to put those articles in Google News. And then other journalists and media outlets see that and will occasionally, write an article and reference my site.
How long have you been working on this again? How long have you been working on Coy Wolf again?
I don't know, maybe 3 years? Maybe?
3 years.
Yeah. And it's funny.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's funny because I got approved for Google News before they did away with approval. and of course now everybody is just like, it's impossible. I can't get in there. And so that's probably my next, again, I just don't have time to do this stuff, but my next kind of itch and test is to try to get a new news site into Google News to prove everybody wrong that you can actually do it, because I think it has everything to do with signals.
Nice.
But I don't have time for that crap. I got other stuff I got to do.
Well, what was I gonna say? Oh, I always make a stupid joke about at SEJ we don't do any link building. Our link building tools are publish button, right? So like,
it's the exact same thing I was just saying, except that was more eloquent.
Investing the time in building the brand / entity investing the time and building the quality, maybe cleaning up some stuff. I mean, this has been almost 20 years now on this brand. The fact that you've done what you've done in 3 years on the weekends in between mowing the grass and doing all this other stuff, then is really, really interesting. And it's really cool to see you applying. And you've been in quote unquote news and entertainment and media SEO now for what, 6 years?
No, a little over 4.5 years. I mean, like
4.5.
all of my experience with, because I used to work on CNET and GameSpot and stuff, and yeah, it's just since once I joined CBS Interactive, which was in 2017, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So it's cool to see you actually putting it to use and it's working. So I I've dropped links to CoyWolf.com.
Oh, thanks. See, great link building.
Yeah, and CoyWolf.reviews. We'll probably link to all your Coy Wolf
that's a great idea.
pages
I love
on
that
the
idea.
post, just to be jerks. We're gonna link to everything. So he said that. So
I love it. I love it.
I'm gonna link on it. This guy says he never does any link building. Here's a bunch of links. Maybe you just use reverse psychology.
My master's is in psychology. It might have been what I was doing the entire time.
Links everywhere.
That's hilarious. This guy, he's written a book about don't build links. He gets links everywhere.
I'm going to show him. I'm going to link to him 100 times in this post.
Cry. Oh, that's funny.
So we did a little bit of a bait and switch here from a subject.
Oh, we're going to address this now?
And maybe I'll do a follow-up show, but originally we were planning on doing a little bit of Web3 stuff because we've been talking about Web3 in the past. You don't do Web3 at all, no. But I did notice that you were using some peer-to-peer style technologies called IPFS to set up
interplanetary file system. Yep.
Whoa, interplanetary. Okay.
That's what it stands for.
Yep. So how does this work? And just really quickly, because we've gone over an hour already. Mm-hmm. And I got a meeting coming up, I think. How does this work? And how are you setting up your hosting? Is this like peer-to-peer based, almost like Napster or whatever it used to be?
It is very similar to like the BitTorrent type stuff. It is a protocol where you can be your own node. And anybody who knows that particular IPFS sort of like unique hash, can access that file. So it's essentially web hosting for free off your own computer, anything that's connected to the internet, and now you're your own sort of hosting provider. And then it leverages other nodes. And that can get really complicated really quick, but it leverages other nodes to also deliver it if it ends up becoming a really popular file or something a lot of people are accessing. And so I wrote an article on Coy Wolf Pro about how you could, for free, take an old computer on your home, network and actually deliver a site really fast using Cloudflare's free account, because Cloudflare, you can set it up to actually point to that particular those files or a folder or whatever on IPFS. And I just these are things I love to tinker with. It was like I love the idea of, can I host my own sort of decentralized websites that nobody can take down or mess with? Can I do it in a way that doesn't cost me any money whatsoever and deliver it incredibly fast to anywhere in the world? And I was able to do that. And that was what I wrote about in that article on Coy Wolf Pro, was just this idea that you can deliver something that's like world-class speed to anywhere out of your
Mac
Mini. Yeah, it is amazing. It is amazing. And that's why I really got into it. And it works, and it's real, and it's not a joke, and it's awesome. I think it's really cool.
Are all your Coy Wolf sites hosted, utilizing that?
Yes, they're hosted. I was thinking like, I don't want to say the name because let's think about InMotion hosting, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. No.
But yes, they're hosted.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I just, it's funny. I was looking for that article and I dropped the wrong one. First I dropped the CoyWolf.news, IPFS may be the future of file hosting and content delivery. And
Yeah.
then I had to look further down into the Google results when I was looking for IPFS hosting. And I found how to leverage Cloudflare and IPF distributed web
That's
host
the one.
to host a free high availability site on CoyWolf.pro. So thank you for showing me in real time how you're
Found it
leveraging
that fast.
your news to drive signals and everything else back to the pro. So really super cool. Thanks again, Jon Henshaw, for joining me today. Thank you for InMotion hosting, for sponsoring today's SEJ show and making this podcast really possible. Where can everyone find you, Jon?
It's funny because I think you said this is streaming on Facebook, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't have a Facebook account anymore.
Good for you.
So, or a Meta account, anything. So I'm sorry about that. I am mainly just on Twitter at twitter.com/Henshaw. I am now playing around with Mastodon, that is decentralized, not Web3, but decentralized social. And you can find me at CoyWolf.social. Surprise! So if you go to CoyWolf.social, that's where my account is. If you wanted to follow or interact or whatever with me there, those are probably the two best places to find me. And my goodness, for not being a link builder, there's all these links now that apparently people can click on. CoyWolf.com. Just think about it. CoyWolf anything. I probably have that domain.
Did you buy CoyWolf.lol yet?
No, I don't think I have that. I have a lot of them. I
was actually on a client call the other day, and I'm like, I was looking at the domains and their brand was available, and they bought most of them except for LOL. And as a joke, I'm like, you should really buy the .lol. So like, someone like me doesn't buy it and just like start writing jokes about your company, and like 5 minutes later, it's like, yeah, we bought the .lol. Thank you. So
you're like, okay.
It's only $1.88 for.
But if they're going to buy it, they should do something fun with it.
For
the heck of it. I have. I mean, like, sorry, I know we're out of time, like way out of time. But I'm doing something kind of fun. I haven't told anybody about at CoyWolf.surf. And
I didn't even know that surf was available.
Yeah, well, it is. So what I'm doing is I have this flat text database. I mean, literally just like a text file. And I just every time I find something interesting, I add the URL to it. And so CoyWolf.surf is the old stumble upon, super low tech, and where you click on it and it will just open up a new tab to some random thing pulling from that text file, whatever. And then the page refreshes because, I don't know what I'm doing. But so when you go back and you click it again, it actually goes to a different link. So that's my, it's my nostalgic site. I miss the old internet. I miss the GeoCities days. I miss when the internet was fun and crazy and various, and every site you go to, people link to everything. And so you'd be up till 3 a.m. because you just keep discovering new things and new weird people and stuff that they're doing. It's like, what? And you can't go to bed because you're like, what's the next thing going to be? It's the next hit.
Exactly.
So CoyWolf.surf, if you really want to waste time in your life, go there.
Oh, I will go and I will link to it. So
you'll regret it, but that's
I got to run. It's been a pleasure. It's been fun catching up. When's the last time we saw each other in real life?
I don't know. Been living in a hole for 2 years.
I think you were wearing shoes with toes on them last time I saw you.
That was a while ago. I'm not doing that.
You're running a lot. Or maybe it was when we went fishing.
Yeah, it's Miami.
Todd
Malka.
Yes. Yeah.
Miami. Poser. It's awesome. Right? We're on that.
That was an awesome trip. That was an awesome trip in more ways than one. So anyway, I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for joining today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you for all of our listeners and viewers. I'm really impressed. I have so many different ideas I'm going to take and try to apply to some different projects that I'm working on based upon this interplanetary network you've set up under the Coy Wolf entity and brand.
I haven't. No, now you're just confused.
I did that on purpose.
Has nothing to do with the Coy Wolf stuff.
And I think there's something to this. So, and you said Fast Mail is doing it something similar as well, correct?
As far as the domains, yeah, they use different domains. I think they might have. I know they have fastmail.help. They might actually have fastmail.blog too. But yeah.
Cool. I'm gonna check it out. All right, John, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for everybody that's been watching and listening. And this is Lauren Baker and Jon Henshaw signing off. Y'all have a good day.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Search Engine Journal Show. If you liked this episode, subscribe to our channel for so much more.